on the Daily Dan blog, but I attempted to play The Night Stalker. That's right. I tried to play the Night Stalker movie Saturday night, you know, a Halloween treat. And for some reason, as I attempted to play a movie that, may I add, is on 50 fucking different channels on YouTube, my ass got the copyright strike. A copyright strike for playing a movie that's already all over YouTube. Thank you very much, YouTube. You can suck my dick. And let me start the night off with a song, and then we're going to play some Bigfoot encounters for y'all. Nobody will come anyway, so fuck it.
Of a wild man covered all in hair. Without fear, he goes where he will. And few would ever know he was there. A legend from down through the ages. In 1958 came to fame when tracks of his were found on California ground. Everyone was soon to know his name. They called him Bigfoot, barefooted giant of the wild, always somewhere out of sight, like a phantom in the night, watching all the while. He's a legend from the ages, but as real as you or me. He's the one they call the Bigfoot, ever wild and always free. It's a story that's often been told by native Indians from the Northwest land, of a tribe of hairy people long ago, who wanted not a thing to do with man, all dismissed as old superstitions by many who have faded now with time. But the winds of change are here. You can see this creature clear, but only if you open up your mind. We call him Bigfoot, barefooted giant of the wild, always somewhere out of sight, like a phantom in the night, watching all the while. He's a legend from the ages, but as real as you and me. He's the one they call the Bigfoot, ever wild and always free. There are skeptics who would have us believe in a hoax lasting several hundred years. Or they tell us we can't be sure of anything we've seen, but they're the ones who cannot see it clear. You don't need a degree that applies to evaluate the evidence at hand. All you really need to bring is the ability to think, not to fear what you don't understand. We call him Bigfoot, barefooted giant of the wild, always somewhere out of sight, like a phantom in the night, watching all the while.
Greetings, Eric.
Ever wild and always free.
Be sure to eat it, BK. Hey, check this out. I'm in one evilly bad mood this Halloween. It's not bad enough that I tried to do a show on Saturday night and show a cool movie for everybody. And YouTube, not only did they give me a strike, I can't go live on the Daily Damn blog for 14 days or some shit like that. So I'm in a really fucking bad mood about that. I'm having to go live over here on the Daddy Staten channel, which means I'll be lucky if three, well, maybe four people actually watch this shit. So I guess I'm going to be talking some really foul language. So if you don't want to watch, I totally understand because I'm not real happy tonight. And on top of that, somebody I really liked, somebody I really cared about in my little world, stabbed me in my motherfucking back today. Yeah, right in the ass. So there you go. Be careful who you fuck with on YouTube because some of these bastards will fucking get you. They'll get you in the end. I swear to God they will. They'll fuck you out. They'll fuck you every chance they get. Oh, I'm sounding like Dr. Wu. I probably had too much to drink tonight. I should probably jump right in here with a really cool Bigfoot story because tonight, all I'm going to do tonight is show some really cool Bigfoot Michigan Rob, true cryptid encounters, kind of a tribute to my friend Rob on Halloween, because he's the best storyteller they are, and all these stories have a little bit of Halloween in them. So kick back, relax, enjoy these Tales of Bigfoot with Bigfoot Michigan Rob.
Hello, everybody. It's Sunday, and yes, it's me, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, with another encounter story for everybody.
But
yeah, it is Sunday. Happy 4th of July coming up on Tuesday. Quick program note. Tuesday, Beyond BMR at 9 o'clock in the East will not be on 4th of July, taking the day off. However, I'll be back Thursday live with Krista at noon Central, 1 in the East. We'll have Amber from Amber's Para World. She's a paranormal investigator. However, she came across some alleged Bigfoot and Dogman sightings or encounters doing her paranormal research. That's going to be a fabulous show. Thanks to each and every single one of you for subscribing to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. If not already, please do so. You do know 2 live shows on Tuesday at 9, Thursday at 1 in the East. I appreciate everybody's support. The super thanks is open for those who care to donate. This story has got everything. It's a Bigfoot encounter in upstate New York, and it's got the preceding investigation after the encounter. So let's get on with it. Again, thanks for subscribing. I appreciate everybody for your support. Here we go. Are you having trouble finding a place for your precious...
It's good to know Bigfoot Michigan Rob is sponsored by Apartments.com. Be sure to check out Bigfoot Michigan Rob's channel. Eventually, you'll find that link in the chat.
It was a frightful day on October 27th. The year is 2011. My name is Frank, and I and my wife Julie had quite an event while sitting on our back porch. Our property is about 3 acres connected to the forest, where my wife and I live in a quaint town in upstate New York. Julie and I were watching several deer 20 yards outside of the wood line when all of a sudden, something running on all fours came blazing from the tree line. Upon approaching one of the deer, it stood upright, ran several feet, grabbed the deer around the neck, seemed to twist and break the deer's neck, then bipedally ran back into the woods. Julie and I sat in disbelief. We never, in the 6 years living on this property, had ever experienced anything like this. It was a common occurrence to see deer and other wildlife on the property, but never experienced such a violent display. To make this even more terrifying was the fact that this beast so fluidly grabbed up the deer like a feather and ran on its 2 legs. Certainly, bears can go up on 2 legs, but are awkward in their approach. This was very graceful and very fluid, extremely natural. Julie and I are very aware of the possible existence of Bigfoot, as our friend Tim studies and researches the subject some 20 miles from our home where he lives.
We also have watched documentaries on the subject whenever we happen to catch on a local television cable program. This purely is for our entertainment, with a slight belief in such creatures like Bigfoot existing. The next day, I decided to call Tim and tell him about what we had witnessed. After the next day's conversation with Tim, he had asked if I went out to the area where we saw this great event and told where this event took place, and I told him I had not. He told me to go have a look, and he would come by within the hour. Julie, meanwhile, told me just to wait for Tim before going to look at the area of the encounter. And to be honest, I had zero intentions of venturing out to the wood line and decided to just sit there and wait for Tim. Tim arrived just at 3 o'clock, and we walked out to the area in question. Tim came with a camera, tape measure, casting material, and binoculars. He was so very excited to go take a look at my property where Julie and I experienced this event. Tim has been researching Bigfoot for about 6 years after proclaiming to have seen a Bigfoot while camping in Ohio with his family. Tim had told me that during his encounter, he witnessed yellow eyeshine that had hovered about 8 feet above the ground with a shadow cast from the woods that took the shape of some sort of bipedal hominid. Since that day, he has been immersed in the subject of Bigfoot and has gone on a variety of expeditions and attends many conferences on the subject across the United States. So needless to say, Tim was stoked. We approached the approximate area where Julie and my sighting took place, and immediately Tim started looking for clues or evidence. It did not take long before we both came across several bipedal tracks that laid freshly upon the grass and dirt on the ground. Clearly, the tracks were human-like. One of the tracks was perfect. Clearly outlined on the ground was a track with the perfect arrangement of 5 toes with an immense foot track. The track itself was measured at 19 inches long and almost 6 inches wide. Other tracks were found, but not as prominent as this one. Tim said to me, "Frank, you have a Bigfoot." Tim was giddy like a kid. I, to be honest, felt excitement running through my body. I quickly called out to Julie to have her come out and have a look. Julie arrived, and she too felt the excitement by the expression that I saw on her face. The question now remains, what is our next step? Tim grabbed his casting material and went about creating the cast, and we went back to the house to indeed discuss our next plan of action. Julie made dinner, and we spent the entire evening leading into the night talking about Bigfoot. It was decided that Tim and I would go hiking back in the woods the next morning and look for more evidence and hopefully come across some more tracks. 6 a.m. the following day, Tim and I went off on our journey. Julie kissed me and wished us a safe and eventful travel. She was a little reluctant about my looking for Bigfoot, but she too was intrigued, and she did understand. Tim and I set off into the woods directly at the tree line where the Bigfoot had first emerged. We were off. The both of us had immense adrenaline flowing and acted like school kids upon embarking on this adventure. After an hour or so hiking upon a rather narrow trail, we came upon a set of tracks almost identical to the tracks left on my property. Tim, again, set a cast, and after measuring the track, it again was the same measurement from the earlier cast. We now believe we do have the evidence that Bigfoot is in my area. We ventured further, several miles, when in the distance we heard a wood knock. It was extremely loud and reminded me of the sound you hear at a baseball game when the batter smacks a home run at the stadium. We stopped for several minutes to observe. I, having my phone, activated my recorder in the hopes of hearing another wood knock. What I was about to record was not that of a wood knock, but that of a typical whoop, the sound that Bigfoot allegedly makes. Then, 20 seconds later or so, another whoop. This, however, was coming from another direction and was a little bit further out. Tim spoke to me. Frank, my friend, there is not only one Bigfoot here, but I do believe the second whoop was an answer or response to the very first vocalization. My head is swirling with excitement, and we venture yet deeper into the woods. Within a half hour or so, we came across a huge X structure in the woods. The trees were uprooted, and the root bulbs crossed each other at the top of the X, with the top of the trees firmly implanted in the ground before us. The structure was at least 18 feet tall by 12 feet wide, immense. Tim and I are grinning ear to ear, and we are literally flabbergasted.
It's so nice to know Bigfoot Michigan Rob is a well-sponsored channel. I guess he's got cool cars.
Going back over all the evidence, firstly, the encounter that Jules and I had with the deer, that I now believe was a Bigfoot. The footprints, finding yet another footprint that matched the first, the two whoops, and now this X structure. Tim and I decided it was time to head back home, and it was getting late in the day, and we have ventured at least 3 hours into the woods. I got home to tell Julie about our findings, and she too was filled with excitement. Since this experience, Julie and I have joined Tim in his investigations, and we too have become Bigfoot researchers. As far as this story goes, I have never seen the Bigfoot we experienced that day, nor have we seen any new or fresh tracks. The X structure still remains. We are decided and dedicated to finding more about this elusive creature, and it has added definitely a new chapter in our life. I think that was a great story. It was a little bit shorter, but hey, you know what? It doesn't matter how long they are. This has a lot of good evidence. The encounter, can you imagine sitting on your back porch, a creature, alleged Bigfoot comes out, grabs a deer, and right in front of your eyes, lifts it, twists its head, snaps its neck, runs back into the forest, and then these guys go back the next day and investigate. Kudos to them. I'm glad they came across something. And again, like a lot of reports, you see it, the Bigfoot one time and never again. I'm glad that they're taking up Bigfoot research. I'm glad they're excited about it. I thought that was a cool story for you guys on this Sunday for the 4th of July. Again, happy 4th of July. Thank you for subscribing to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. If not already, please do. The super thanks is open should you care to donate. However, with that being said, I'll see you next Thursday at noon.
That's Bigfoot Michigan Rob with a Bigfoot story. Welcome in, Mox. Hey, Mox, you know what YouTube, these sorry motherfuckers done? They give me a copyright strike on the damn blog. So I can't go live on there for like 14 days and kind of ruin my shows, and I'm all pissed off. You're going to hear me use the fucking F word tonight, so I'm all pissed off. Fill the chat up with all kind of wrestling stuff. At least I'll get a few comments on this motherfucker, because nobody's going to watch it anyway. Because I can't, this show was supposed to be on the blog, and I expected I'd probably have 100 people tonight. But no, I couldn't do it on the blog because of a copyright strike. Over a movie, Mox, over a movie that's on 50 fucking channels on YouTube. It's everywhere. They didn't get copyright strikes. No, they give me a copyright strike. So let's just listen to another story by my cool friend, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, who gives me permission to use his stuff here on my channels. And normally this show would have been on the Daily Damn blog. It would have been an episode of The Witching Hour, but I planned to do it on Halloween night for a long time. So even though nobody much is going to watch it, I'm still going to do my show. And by the way, let me say this one more time, just so everybody knows. Fuck you, YouTube!
Hello, everybody. It's me, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. It's Saturday. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Time for episode 4 of the Bigfoot Classics. You guys love these stories. I love doing these classics. I've got a short one and then a normal length video here for you guys. First one, 1840 is the time period. Elkanah Walker, an excerpt from the diary, and then 1955, William Rowe. So two great classics. I love these classics. I hope you do too. Later on today or tomorrow, I'll be putting out another video regarding my emailer or subscriber encounters, so I'll be looking forward to that. This past Thursday, I had a great show with Alex Pedikov, Coastal Alaskan Sasquatch joined me on the show along with Krista. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll love it. Great interview. Go check it out. Subscribe. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, of course, on YouTube. The Diary of Elkanah Walker. If we are to believe the Diary of Elkanah Walker, pioneer, American missionary in Washington State to the Spokane Indians, a written passage from the diary. Bear with me if I trouble you with a little of their superstitions. They believe in a race of giants, which inhabit a certain mountain off to the west of us. This mountain is covered with perpetual snow. They, the creatures, inhabit the snow peaks. They hunt and do all their work at night. They are men stealers. They come to the people's lodges at night when the people are asleep and take them and put them under their skins into their place of abode without even waking. Their track is 1.5 feet long. They steal salmon from Indian nets and eat them raw, as the bears do, if the people are awake. They always know when they are coming very near by their strong smell that is almost intolerable. It is not uncommon for them to come up in the night and give 3 whistles, and then the stones began to hit their houses. Excerpt, Drury, 1976. Reverend Walker's established mission was approximately located 25 miles northwest of present-day Spokane, Washington. His diary and entry of the snow peak to the west could be one of several peaks in the Cascade Range, such as Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, or Mount St. Helens, or possibly he could have meant Mount Hood on the Oregon side of the Columbia River. But Sasquatch researchers generally believe the missionary was referring to Mount St. Helens, which is always carry legends of Sasquatches, ape-like men, and of course, the 1924 story of Fred Beck in Ape Canyon. Missionary Walker also penned the pre-Civil War references to this beautiful Mount Helens as a place where the white man and the Indians never frequented, and who assert it is uninhabited by a race of beings of a different species, who are cannibals and whom they hold in great dread. In these private writings, it was declared the Indians called these different beings Seaticos or Celatics, words he thought at the time of his writings possibly referred to renegade or outcast Indians banished from tribal villages, and not the elusive timber giant. Of this referral point, we can be sure his diaries were the first to make mention of this. Again, that was from the Diary of Elkanah Walker. I'd like to get more information on this diary, and I'm sure that I will be back reporting on that again for you guys. So I hope you like that little excerpt. This one here takes place in Michigan. William Rowe's affidavit of an alleged Bigfoot. Ever since I was a small boy back in the forest of Michigan, I have studied the lives and habits of wild animals. Later, when I supported my family in northern Alberta by hunting and trapping, I spent many hours just observing wild things. They fascinated me, but the most incredible experience I had ever had with a wild creature occurred near a little town called Tite, Yon Cache, British Columbia, about 80 miles west of Jasper, Alberta. I had been working on the highway near Tete Jean Cachet for about 2 years. In October 1955, I decided to climb 5 miles up the Mika Mountain to an old deserted mine, just for something to do. I came in sight of the mine about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after an easy climb. I had just come out of a patch of low brush into a clearing when I saw what I thought was a grizzly bear in the bush on the other side. I had shot a grizzly bear near that spot the year before. This was only about 75 yards away, but I didn't want to shoot it, for I had no way of getting out to it. So I sat down on a small rock and watched, my rifle in my hand. I could see part of the animal's head and the top of one shoulder. A moment later, it raised up and stepped out into the opening. Then I saw it was not a bear. This, to be the best of my recollection, is what the creature looked like and how it acted as it came across the clearing directly towards me. My first impression was of a huge man, about 6 feet tall, almost 3 feet wide, and probably weighing somewhere near 300 pounds. It was covered from head to toe with a dark brown, silver-tipped hair, but as it came closer, I saw by its breasts that it was a female. And yet its torso was not curved like a female's. Its broad frame was straight from shoulder to hip. Its arms were much thicker than a man's arms and longer, reaching almost to its knees. Its feet were broader proportionately than the man's, about 5 inches wide at the front and tapered to a much thinner heels. When it walked, it placed the heel of its foot down first, and I could see the gray-brown skin or hide on the soles of its feet. It came to the edge of the brush it was hiding in, within 20 feet of me, and squatted down on its haunches. Reaching out its hands, it pulled the branches of brushes toward it and stripped the leaves with its teeth. Its lip curled flexibly around the leaves as it ate. I was close enough to see that its teeth were white and even. The shape of the creature's head somewhat resembled a bear, but it had like a pointed head. The head was higher at the back than at the front. The nose was broad and flat. The lips and chin protruded further than its nose, or farther out than its nose, but the hair that covered it, leaving bare only the parts of its face around the mouth, nose and ears, made it resemble an animal as much as it did a human. None of this hair, even on the back of its head, was longer than an inch, and that on its face was much smaller. Its ears were shaped like a human's ears, but its eyes were small and black like a bear's, and its neck was also unhuman, thicker and shorter than any man's that I've ever seen. As I watched this creature, I wondered if some movie company was making a film at this place, and that what I saw was an actor, made up to look partly human and partly animal. But as I observed it move, I decided it would be impossible to fake such a specimen. Anyway, I learned later that there was no such company near that area, nor in fact did anyone live up in Mika Mountain, according to the people who lived in Tete. Finally, the wild thing must have got my scent, for it looked directly at me through an opening in the brush. A look of amazement crossed his face. It looked so comical at the moment, I had to grin. Still in a crouched position, it backed up 3 or 4 short steps, then straightened up to its full height and it started to walk rapidly back the way it had come. For a moment, it watched me over its shoulder as it went, not exactly afraid, but as though it wanted no contact with anything strange. The first thought came to me that if I shot it, I would possibly have a specimen of great interest to scientists the world over. I had heard stories of the Sasquatch, the giant hairy Indians that lived in the legends of British Columbia. As many Indians also claim, are still in fact alive today. Maybe this was a Sasquatch, I told myself. I leveled my rifle. The creature was still walking rapidly away, again turning his head to look in my direction. I lowered the rifle. Although I have called the creature it, I felt now that it was a human being, and I knew I would never forgive myself if I killed it. Just as I came to the other patch of brush, it threw its head back and made a peculiar noise that seemed to be half laugh and half language, and which I can only describe as a kind of whine. Then it walked from the small brush into a stand of lodgepole pine. I stepped out into the opening and looked across a small ridge just beyond the pine to see if I could see it again. It came out on the ridge a couple 100 yards away from me, tipped its head back again, and again emitted the only sound I heard it make. But what's this half laugh, half language was meant to convey, I do not know. It disappeared then, and I never saw it again. I wanted to find out if it lived on vegetation entirely or ate meat as well. So I went down and looked for signs. I found it in 5 different places, and although I examined it thoroughly, could find no hair or shells or bugs or insects. So I believe it was strictly vegetarian. I found one more place it had slept for a couple of nights under a tree. Now the nights were cool up in the mountain at this time of year especially, and yet had not used a fire. I found no sign that it possessed even the simplest of tools, not a single companion while in this place. Whether this was a Sasquatch, I do not know. It will always remain a mystery to me, unless another one is found. I hereby declare the above statement to be in every part true, to the best of my powers of observation and recollection. Signed, William Rowe, from Ivan T. Sanderson. Abominable snowman legends come to life. Don't know why he makes reference of Michigan early in this, because this clearly was about Spokane, Washington, then Alberta. So I think it's because he was a small boy living in Michigan, then moved onward. But I, again, hope you enjoyed that classic, both classics. I found them, again, the more we delve into the history, I think the better understanding we get. There's a lot of description in this one. I really liked it, and it kind of reminds me of other stories that perhaps that we do get that we put out on the internet. So again, I hope you enjoyed that one. I certainly did.
I did too, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Everybody should be sure to check out Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Eventually, I'll get around to dropping this link in the chat. Not that it matters, because there ain't no fucking buddy watching this shit nowhere. Really makes me mad. Once again, let me point out, I got a copyright strike on the Daily Damn blog, so I wasn't able to do a show that I planned to do over there. So I'm attempting to do it over here, and that's where I'm playing some really cool Bigfoot Michigan Rob Bigfoot Encounters from his book, True Cryptid Encounters, that everybody needs to pick up. I'll do another show like this if YouTube ever lets me do live streams again on the Daily Dan blog.
Hello, everybody. It's Friday. It's February the 3rd. It's time for another subscriber or emailer encounter story sent into the channel. Of course, I am Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Please subscribe. This story, you guys, is fantastic. It's really cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely. I hope you do too. I think it's got a message, and it's kind of refreshing. You know, this isn't like Dogman Island, which I thought was really cool, and thanks for that. It's my #1 video thus far, put out a couple weeks ago. So I love all you guys. Thanks for watching my videos. And this one is surely going to entertain you. And here we go. I call this the gift from Sasquatch. Hello, Rob. For the purpose of my encounter, I will go by the name of Dan. I came across your channel a few months ago, and I love the format. I love the encounter stories, the live shows, and what you all have to offer. You, Tex, and Jason provide quality information with your individual styles and do provide a sense of humor, interjected brilliantly with sometimes subject matter that sometimes can get a little dark. That is appreciated and really the reason for this email. I feel safe and confident. I do not participate in chat. I often listen to the replays when my schedule allows that. Thank you very much for the awesome compliment. I'm glad you found us, and I'm glad that we can be of service and that I can provide your story. I live outside of the Flathead National Forest in Montana, Flathead County. I have a beautiful cabin on 25 acres. Although it's 2,000 square feet, that is what my late Uncle Ron called it, the cabin. I inherited the cabin back in 2017 after his passing. I have a gorgeous view of the mountains, of which the Mission Mountain Range is closest. My property is surrounded by the forest, and I fully understand when people claim that they live in God's country. We have a variety of wildlife, predators like the cougar and some black bears. I sometimes often worry about grizzly bears, but I was assured that none were in these parts. So that put my mind at ease. And really, it doesn't matter. I just remember watching documentaries about grizzly attacks, so I think I have just a little phobia. I do have deer, elk, moose, other four-legged mammals freely roaming around my acreage, and I also include cattle that was left to me from my deceased Uncle Ron. My Uncle Ron told me that one day this would all be mine. He introduced me to the First Nations of the Flathead Reservation, several miles away. I do believe he wanted to feel assured that I had a relationship with the people of the reservation for the day of his eventual passing. He wanted me not to feel alone, I had always suspected. My sister had passed at an early age. Both of my parents had also passed, leaving me the only living blood relative for Uncle to pass on his possessions. He also knew of my love for Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I prefer Sasquatch when referring to these keepers of the land, as the First Nations of Flathead would call them. They told me this would be the respectful way to address them. I had started Sasquatch research in the early 2000s after having my first encounter. While hunting with a friend in Montana about 50 miles west of Flathead, it was brief, but not one to forget, talking about his first encounter. I was up in my tree stand when I heard a bipedal footfall coming from behind my stand. I found it to be very strange, as this was a solid thumping or crashing onto the ground. The sounds got louder. I looked directly down to see a very large animal covered in black hair. Well, I thought it was some sort of bear. However, I know that bears don't walk, and this was extremely tall. 5 feet past the front of my tree stand, the creature stopped, looked up, and almost acted surprised to see me. And it spun around in almost one full stride, disappeared back from the way it entered. It looked human-like, yet odd. That was the start of my exploring and looking for the hominid known to be Sasquatch. Shortly after Uncle Ron's passing, the natives welcomed me to the land and had asked what I had planned on doing with the cattle left in my possession. This was not a ranch, and I really did not plan on keeping them. I believe my uncle supplied them to the reservation. I wanted to show my appreciation for my new neighbors, and as a gesture, I offered the remaining animals to them to affirm our friendship. Surely, I could have sold them off, but I was fortunate to have built a strong portfolio over the years and felt that this was the right thing to do. I felt great about my decision and was relieved to not have the responsibility. We struck up an agreement that the remaining cattle would be depleted over a 2 to 4 month period. And actually, there were only 4 cows and 2 steer that remained. My uncle slowly started to stop replenishing his inventory with his health in decline, and it was becoming too much work. 1 month into living at the cabin, it all started. I woke up early one morning and noticed that both steer were gone. I had contacted the reservation and asked if they had already started the removal of cattle a little bit early. I did not care, yet I thought it was odd that I was not informed prior. In speaking with an elder of the reservation, I was told that they had not been to my home and most certainly would have contacted me if they had decided to process or start this early. The elder, I will simply call John, did find it strange and came to my property to look around. We both went to where the cattle grazed and took note of 2 sets of footprints. They measured to be 23 inches long by 6.5 inches wide. Clearly, there were 2 sets, as an additional track measuring 21 by 5 inches wide were also found. John uttered Sasquatch. I am floored. Did I look out to have Sasquatch near my property? Do I have a research area firmly implanted in my own backyard? I gushed out to John, "Really, John?" He affirmed to me, yes. Elder John also knew of my research and said that I had been the chosen one. John had told me that things would now be different. He told me that I'm here for a reason and that the verbal agreement with the Flathead Reservation could not be honored out of respect for the Sasquatch. He suggested that they now hold claim to the cattle and that they were now entitled with the passing of Uncle Ron. I stood in awe of this. I still can't process what is now happening or what I'm being told. Did my uncle know about Sasquatch near the property? What a gift I certainly was left with. I then asked Elder John if he knew about this. He smiled and said, "Of course, I knew." I asked, "What does this all mean? Why did my uncle not tell me of this, knowing my love for Sasquatch?" He only replies, "There are reasons for everything, and the unspoken word has power." He assured me that my newfound friends will now protect me and watch over me, just as they did for my uncle and his tribal community. The following 4 months had passed, and you guessed it, all the remaining cattle were taken from my property. They also left their tracks on every visit. Sadly, after taking what the Sasquatch claimed, I never again found a track, nor have I had a sighting. I researched my property to no avail. Then, 2 years later, I hear a rustling of heavy walking on my backyard deck that awakens me around 5 o'clock in the morning. Then, the walking stopped. I get out of bed and rush outside to my deck. In my amazement, placed in a single file row are 6 cleanly polished skulls, which included 4 cows and 2 steer. I jump off my deck and look around for tracks. Again, not surprisingly, I found what I was looking for, the same footprints that first appeared on my property when this journey first started. I am forever grateful to my uncle and my First Nations friends. I consider myself a lucky man. My only concern now, without having any blood relatives alive, is what becomes of my property after I leave this earth. I can only hope that this gift remains sacred. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was an awesome email, great encounter, great experience.
I think it was a wonderful experience, Rob. I love Bigfoot Michigan Rob tales, Bigfoot Michigan Rob stories. And now this is one for Long Island Bigfoot if he's still watching. Because Long Island Bigfoot says he hears the mind speak, you know, where Bigfoot can talk to you in the mind. And I have a 50-50 belief in that myself. So we're going to let Bigfoot Michigan Rob throw a mind speak story
another
at you.
Friday subscriber encounter.
Well, I get a
story.
drink
This is an email I
because I'm
received.
pissed off.
It's Friday, January 20th. And before I start, the thumbnail of this video is artwork done by Sibylla Irwin. I have to give her credit. She's a fantastic artist. Go check her out on YouTube. It's simply Sibylla Irwin. Go check out her fantastic renditions. Thank you, Sibylla, for letting me use the beautiful artwork. I also have to thank everybody. My last video, Dogman Island, ended up being my most successful one to date. Thank you to each and every one of you for subscribing and for watching. I hope that this does justice. Olympic Mountain Range, Washington, summer of 2020. My name is Jake, and I had been camping and hiking in the Olympic National Forest for decades.
Discover the Ozempic Zone. Ask your healthcare provider about Ozempic.
National Forest for decades. I have been researching Sasquatch since the early part of the fall in 2007, when I stumbled upon what I considered to be a Sasquatch while fishing in this beautiful area. After a successful day's catch, I headed back up the trail to my campsite when suddenly, from behind a huge tree, a rather tall and upright being darted out directly in my path. It glanced at me and with one stride disappeared to the other side of the trail. This happened very fast, and this person, and I do say person, appeared to have a human-like face, yet was covered in black hair, had extreme girth and height, but was too odd and too huge to be an actual person. I had wondered at what this was, and I started to read up on Bigfoot and the like. I studied First Nations to American researchers and watched several commercial television shows, just enough to pique my interest and start my new pursuits of investigating this enigmatic beast. At the start of this story, I mentioned the year 2020. This is when my suspicions of the actual existence of Sasquatch hit me. Sure, I saw something in 2007, but still was not yet convinced of what I had seen. I had 13 years of research under my belt and had made discoveries of several oversized footprints. I had seen the usual tree breaks and structures, and even have some recordings of what I believe to be whoops and hollers. But still nothing visual since 2007. I had done a lot of talking with First Nations people. I, being a white man, found it difficult to hear stories or get information from local tribes. Then, one day, while at a hardware store in town, buying plaster for a print that I had found earlier in the day, a tribesman who introduced himself as Elder Dan asked what the supplies were for. I found it exciting that I was approached by an elder and excitedly started talking about Sasquatch. Dan took an interest in me and invited me over to his home after I had casted my possible print. I met him at his home, and he told me of the many stories of Sasquatch. I found it to be particularly interesting when he started talking on how the Sasquatch can communicate telepathically to certain chosen ones. Not sure on what to believe, Dan and I quickly became friends, and he and I started to go researching together in the Olympic Forest. He taught me how to keep an open mind and to keep my thoughts clear and focused. Not necessarily on finding or seeing a Bigfoot, but to have appreciation for Mother Nature and respect for the Sasquatch. With that, Elder Dan told me, with those thoughts at hand, that they will appear either physically or mentally. 1 year after Elder Dan and I had met, he passed away. I was so upset and distraught that I stepped away from my love of studying Sasquatch for several months. Then, while asleep, I was awoken by somebody whispering in my ear, as clearly and as concise as you could ever imagine. The voice inside my head spoke these words to me: "Before sunrise, go to you and Elder Dan's favorite spot in the forest." I thought I was dreaming, but this seemed all too real, and in fact, the words spoken eerily sounded like the voice of my dear friend, Elder Dan. I now feel compelled to listen to these words, and before sunrise, I headed to Elder Dan's and my favorite research area. I felt different that morning. I could not put a finger on it, but thought to myself, today I will discover the truth. Upon reaching our research area, I immediately did not feel, but I knew, not felt, and knew I was being watched. The sun just started to rise, casting a shadow along the tree line. Then, walking out from the tree line, I cannot believe what I am looking at. It is a Sasquatch. It was maybe 7 feet tall, had grayish covered hair covering its body, with white hair surrounding the face, flowing down over the massive shoulders. This Sasquatch was not solid, however. It seemed to be transparent, as I could see directly through it. Yet it was still well defined, and I could pick out every detail. Then it spoke, but not aloud, but telepathically. "Thanks for joining me here, my dear lost friend." I was shocked. I strained my eyes at this Sasquatch to look at its face. The face is important because, just like earlier, the spoken words sounded like those of Elder Dan. To my amazement, this Sasquatch looked like my friend, Elder Dan. Did he come back to this world as a Sasquatch? That's what I thought in my mind. This cannot be. Almost immediately, as I thought these thoughts, the Sasquatch replied, "Yes, it is who you think. Do not let the passing of Elder Dan hinder your love for the Sasquatch, for I am here to guide you." To this day, I speak with Elder Dan, this Sasquatch friend, and he helps me with my research. I have not seen the old tribesman since that morning in the forest, but he is there and continues to speak about respecting Mother Nature and the existence of the Sasquatch people.
The Sasquatch people.
I still do not know if, in fact, this is Elder Dan in Sasquatch form. I do believe that he is with me to this day, however, and I have a special relationship with Mother Nature and myself. I have a newfound respect for all the beings of the forest, whether in human form or in spirit. Well, you guys, that is really interesting and amazing. Elder Dan takes this guy under his wings. Elder Dan passes away. Gets this thought in his head during the morning to go to their favorite research spot. The communication is that of Elder Dan. I mean, his voice, anyways, goes into the forest. This creature, this Sasquatch, appears to him, appears to look like Elder Dan, sounds like Elder Dan. He gives him the message, and the message that this Sasquatch is giving Jake here in the story is the same message that Elder Dan gave to him. This is pretty interesting. You know, did Elder Dan reincarnate? Did he come back at the Sasquatch? Or is this, in fact, a Sasquatch taking on the spirit of Elder Dan, helping to guide poor Jake? And according to Jake in his email, he's happy. His research, I guess, is thriving. I hope that he reaches back to me because I like to hear future stories and what his research has come across. But what do you think?
What do you think? Now, let me know in the comments below what you think about that story. I love the stories Bigfoot Michigan Rob spins out. He's one of my favorite storytellers. I also want to give a special shout out to Long Island Bigfoot for showing up tonight. You're one of the few people who actually did. I do appreciate it. And everybody be sure to check out Long Island Bigfoot's channel. I'll drop his link in the chat before this stuff's over. I got to take a few minutes now to give a shout out to my new sponsor. That's right, the Daddy Dan blog and the Danny Staten channel. Both are now sponsored by something really cool. So, check out this.
Jack Link's Jerky. Feed your wild side. Jack Link's Beef Jerky presents Messin' with Sasquatch.
Don't like it. It says 5 feet from the hole right here. Hey, big fella. Want a cold one? Yeah, open it up. Come on now. You can't drink it yet? No, you gotta. There you go. No. You can't open it like that. You gotta. Yeah, that's it. Come on, you can do it.
Jack Link's Jerky. Feed your wild side. Jack Link's Beef Jerky presents Messin' with Sasquatch.
Ding dong!
Jack Link's Jerky. Feed your wild side. Jack Link's Beef Jerky presents Messin' with Sasquatch.
Ding dong!
Jack Link's Jerky. Feed your wild side. Jack Link's Beef Jerky presents Messin' with Sasquatch. Jack Link's Jerky. Feed your wild side. Jack Link's Beef Jerky presents Messin' with Sasquatch. Jack Link's Jerky. Feed your wild side.
And that's my new sponsor, Jack Link's Jerky. Everybody be sure to pick you up some Jack Link's Jerky. It really is cool to have a sponsor. I guess I should do more of their stuff one day, maybe. And I want to appreciate everybody for coming today. I can't believe 3 people actually showed up for this shit. But I do appreciate you guys. And we're living in the land of the Bigfoot.
Watch a blazing sunrise paint the morning skies with shades of flame. Above a quiet wilderness, man has somehow
I want to thank everybody for coming. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
The moment seems suspended in a land where there's no need for time or clocks. It's yesterday again to the boy who used to walk where Bigfoot walks. So many years have passed, I still can't believe it looks the same. As though it's been protected by a memory that kept it all unchanged. Tonight they'll sing my welcome, the spotted owl, the coyote, and the fox. They'll know that I've come back again to walk where Bigfoot walks. As a boy I knew these wild lands as well as any man. This was like my playground at the time. And times I faced the giant, I came to understand he'd go his way if only I went mine. They say you can't go home again, but going home is really in your mind. And I think it all depends on what it is back home you're hoping you can find. For me it's being free again, where there's no doors of steel and there's no locks. Free to be that boy again, the one who used to walk where Bigfoot walks.
You earned it, Eric. You earned it just for being here, buddy. Most people didn't come.
Someday this peaceful valley may have to give way to the march of man. And just become a memory to all of those who really love this land. But here today my soul soars among the eagles and the hawks. Today I'm going back again to walk where Bigfoot walks. And it just may be
Thanks for coming, everybody.
as the boy
Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And I'll see you next time.